This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee to talk about the 21st episode in The Mandalorian. This is the 5th episode in Season 3, which means there are only 3 episodes left of this season, which seems kind of weird to me. The episode is called The Pirates. I've got 2 of my favorite pirates on the show with me. First, celebrating his first year as a podcasting icon, the creator and host of the Colby Cast, Mr. Colby Mead.
Can I get a t-shirt made of that? A podcasting icon? Since Dan Zare has dubbed me that, I'm going to make one. So yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on, Dan. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And you can just, just download this and just put that part in an audio loop and just play it.
Making it my ringtone.
Make it your thing. Speaking of things, that's a terrible transition. We've got another icon. He's an icon of beards, of hats, of art, of creation, of co-creating podcasts. Mr. Cory Clubb.
Yes, hello. I'm gonna download that and use that as my ringtone as well.
Excellent.
You fumbling through the transition. That's all.
Thank you. That's the only part that I was thinking as well. All right. So again, this was a great week for Star Wars. We've got Celebration next week. We had the finale of Season 2 of The Bad Batch, which we will dedicate an entire show to that because that certainly deserves its own thing. But we're going to talk about The Mandalorian, the pirate, and you know how this goes, gentlemen. We're going to do one word to describe our overall thoughts. Save the letter grade for the very, very end of the show, so keep those on your ledger for now. So, Cory, give me one word to describe the episode and overall thoughts on it.
Oh, boy. I had my one word blank for a long time. I was kind of typing things in and going, that doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound right. And then I just kind of made up a word. I'm typing it now. I like to be kind of spontaneous, I guess, with this. Blasterific.
Blasterific?
It's a word. It's a word.
I like it.
I don't know. It's a word. It works, right?
I think it works.
I wanted something that was exciting or eventful or getting some, like I said, the meat of kind of this whole season, really. Overall, I think this was a fantastic episode. I think we're really tying up some of these plot points, or we're seeing them cross over with one another. We're having some big moments within, the Mandalorian himself, and there's a new kind of era, I think, coming out of this episode, and I'm excited to be part of it. Plus the return of some fun new characters. I thought there were so many awesome cameos. So very cool stuff. Excited to talk about it.
That might come up. Yeah.
Might come up.
Excellent. Colby, what about you? One word and overall thoughts.
My word is unprepared. And I really feel like I am, falling very short of my own expectations because I go around telling everybody, be prepared for anything on this show. And it's proven to be that, right? You never know who you're going to see, what they're going to do on The Mandalorian. And I was not prepared for a certain character that I'm sure we'll talk about. And just overall, I wasn't prepared for the ending, the direction that it took at the end. And I'm saying this in the best way possible, really, because it was, Cory, like you said, it was fantastic. It was entertaining. They're setting the stage for the show to really go epic. And it's this type of an episode where you see so many threads coming together where you just don't know what's going to happen next. And I'm so excited about it.
Fantastic. My word, it's in all caps.
Uh-huh.
This is the first all caps one word for a Coffee with Kenobi episode. My word is yes with an exclamation point.
Yes.
Finally, I have been... I won't say frustrated, but a little bit in stasis, waiting for something to happen this episode or this season. It's this delivered in ways that I did not expect, and this felt more to me like The Mandalorian than it was. First of all, it's my favorite episode of the whole season for sure, easily. Mm-hmm. And this felt more like seasons 1 and 2 than anything else had in season 3. So I'm quite happy, and it's a big fat yes from me.
Nice.
So it's called the Pirate. Right away, we see when we see the planet. Every time we see Navarro, the way that the architecture is in the sun, I always think, well, it's Batu. Finally, the Mandalorian is filming in Galaxy's Edge. It's not Batu, it's Navarro. But the way, of course, the architecture, Doug Chang worked on this, and of course, he helped to develop Galaxy's Edge and the look of that. So there's a nice little matchup there. Grief Karga is planning out things since he is the chief magistrate, which is a nice running joke this season.
Yeah.
What kind of stands out to all of you about the opening sequence? And please include the pirate attack in the conversation as well. Colby, let's start with you.
The half complete IG memorial that's still just the legs after the first episode where he's trying to go salvage him. And they do that quick shot that's going sort of through or up towards Grief Karga's residence, I guess, or is his office, whatever that place is. And they just sort of pan right by it. I just had to giggle. It's still there. Like, put some concrete up or something. Like, you guys have material. Finish the statue up again, right? He deserves it. But yeah, so right off the bat, we see Grief Karga's planning. He's working on his expansion, and he gets this message from Gorian Shard, which is always a treat to see because I just love the look of that character. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who the voice actor is for, but he delivers so well. Like, he's just such a rich voice performance that we get from him. He's even just interesting to hear talk. Right, and then these kinds of scenes make me worry for Star Wars planets everywhere, because if you think about it, couldn't a ship this size just show up and start bombarding cities? And that's what happens, right? They have to get everybody out of town. We see something similar in A Bad Batch with the Camino, in the last couple episodes of the first season. So, that's just something that makes me worried for Star Wars cities everywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is an interesting beginning of this. It's laying the landscape a little bit, like I said, tying some of these plot points into this next episode. And I knew these pirates guys will be back and doing their thing. And Goran Shard, what a great! I agree with you. He's a great character. He's a great voice actor, and all around great character. Unfortunately, we see it also his demise. He was, yes, but also, like I said,
he went the way of the appendix.
Yes, he Grief Karga is like he's doing his thing, and I always was thinking, like, how does he know what to do? How do you set up a city that's been he's just planning it out, and then he realizes he makes a mistake, which I think is kind of funny, but like shows that he's trying, right? I feel like he's giving it a shot, and maybe not so good necessarily at his job right in this moment. He's learning his way as we see in this episode in general, and the end of this episode too. But yeah, I liked the fact that they gave threats and followed through on them. It wasn't just an empty threat. I think I was like, oh, they're just gonna sit above the city and just like hold it for ransom or something like that. But no, they're just firing down and blowing stuff up, and buildings are blowing up. And I was like, oh, okay, this is getting off to a hot start. And they weren't messing around. Like, they're just, like you said, this is what happens on the mid-rim, I guess. They just start taking over planets because they feel like it, because they're pirates. It's like, this is exactly what pirates would do. This is right. This feels good. Like, yes, I think the Empire, or the whatever's left of the Empire, would, slowly strategically try to do things. But this is like, no, we're pirates. We're going in for it. And so we see the effects there, and obviously the folks are running out of town.
The Carl Weathers is just such a treasure, such a cultural treasure. Of course, his fame comes not from the Star Wars franchise, but from the Rocky franchise. Mm-hmm. But he's just such a presence, and I like how he walks this line, being this like very earnest, eager magistrate who wants to be called a chief magistrate. The Gorian Shard even comments on that. You look like you're some fat wedding guest, some rich, wealthy snob, basically not this really tough guy that used to be in charge of the Bounty Hunters Guild on Navarro. And he does this thing with his body. He's still a very fit man. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's incredibly in great shape. And he kind of changes his posture just slightly. We're not talking Christopher Reeve, Clark Kent to Superman change posture, but he modifies it just a hair. and he says, "Don't." What does he say? Don't underestimate my manners for weakness, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, Cardinus. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't write that down. I wrote down. It seems like I wrote down everything else in this. My gosh, and I just really like the new struggle here, and we've heard it hinted around to in this season. We've seen it in some of the literature. But are you an independent system or are you a New Republic system? Because if you're not a New Republic system, then the odds are really good. And we see this later with a great cameo from Tim Meadows, Saturday Night Live alum, that they basically won't have time to help you. And we've seen this. This is a little bit more, it's not comedic, but it's a little more light than what we saw in the third episode with Dr. Pershing. But here, it's very, very clear. We don't have any understanding about what it means to help people, to care about people, because they just don't have time for people. I'm just going to say it. I hate the New Republic.
I know, right?
They stink.
Like, you want to root for them, but they're like, you're horrible at this job. Like, you're no good. You're doing this all backwards.
They fought so hard for so long, and so many people died, and so many crazy things happened.
But what do you do?
They can't even show compassion.
I don't. It's almost like we don't have enough resources for it, or the fact that, like you said, they're overrun. They don't know what to do. Right? They're all kind of rebels trying to figure out how to run a galaxy to some degree, and it's chaos.
Well, they make a big deal about that too. They make a big deal about you don't have the resources, but you've got 1 billion, and they say we're not a rebellion anymore. We've got a system in place. It's almost like they are downplaying the whole rebellion thing. But again, just like this often imitates real world history, we often downplay those that helped to win our freedom. And I'm certainly not being political here because I'm the least political person you'll probably ever meet. But I'm just saying it does very much mirror history to a very on the nose degree.
And please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say here, because I would never, ever say what the Empire did was good. But I will give them this. They were effective. And doesn't seem like the New Republic is even effective in what they're doing. It doesn't even come across that they know what they're trying to accomplish. It's just bureaucracy, and even going further than that, going back to the convert episode, just putting numbers on people and mind flayers, and it's just like they're repackaging some of the less offensive things that the Empire did and putting this shine on it, and it's no better than that. And my gosh, it's just it's really, I find it fascinating though, the context that they're giving us through this show, because we didn't really get a lot of that in the sequel movies, maybe a little bit in Resistance, but by far much more so in this show, and it's sort of gross.
It really is. I know why Cory's laughing, because he made him think of Tom.
Yep.
He will not abandon his city. There's an escape craft ready for him. This protocol droid with very alarming, weird looking green eyes. Then it flashes to the music of the Mandalorian, but it's the first time that I can remember it's different music.
It's like a
music
organ, or like a, what do you call that?
Like a Mediterranean.
Yeah, like a piratey,
style.
like almost like a Pirates of the Caribbean style.
Yeah,
flair to it.
Is it really called the pirate because of what's his name, Gorian Shard? Is it really? That's so. Really why?
I mean, they're pirates, right? The pirate.
Yeah, but there should be the pirates. Why is it singular? Is it because he's the one causing the ruckus? I don't know.
Probably, maybe.
I don't know. Let's talk about. It's a spoiler, folks. That we don't usually do spoilers, but this is a spoiler for the live show next week. Again, next week's show will be on Monday instead of Tuesday, because I'll be going to London. But the thing here, my number one favorite moment from this entire season lasts about 25 seconds. Y-Wing shows up in this little cantina area, and Carson Teva is he's got the message from Grief Karga. I kind of like, hey, do you have I don't remember the name of the device, but so I can play this hologram. And all of a sudden, you see someone strolling, and right away, I said a word that I can't say in a family show. I just out loud said, "No!" Holy whoa! And I stood up in my chair. I was watching this the first time I watched it. I was watching it by myself. I stood up in my chair and I said, "No way! No way!"
Yeah.
Zeb Aurelius, my favorite Lasat from Lausanne. Absolutely magical, guys. What do you make of that? How did he look? What do you think?
It goes back. That's where my word came from. Unprepared. I was so unprepared to see Zeb in live action on my screen that I didn't believe it was him. First of all, how fantastic does that character look?
Yeah.
He looked so good. The facial expressions, the voice, of course, Steve Bloom, you knew it was him right off the bat with the voice, but I'm like, okay, is this a different, wait a minute. So I even looked at the credits and there it is. It says Zeb.
Yep,
it says Zeb
it just
right
has
there.
his name. It doesn't say Aurelius, just says Zeb.
Yep, just says Zeb. And I sort of reacted the same way. My jaw hit the floor. And that's what you just don't know who you're going to see in any scene that starts or ends or whatever on this show. And in addition to that, I'm sure you guys caught, but we saw the three sitting at the bar, which was Dave Filoni, Deborah Chow, and Rick Famuyiwa sitting at the bar because they've all been pilots. And of course they would be in this pilot hangout with Zeb. Or I was like, what are you? This is so incredible. Oh, loved it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I did the same reaction. I was like, "What? Oh!" Like I just like couldn't like make words, and it was great to see. That's what I love about Dave Filoni. He's so good about posting up cameos or quick flashes of other unused stuff they didn't get to use, or it was this was a sketch way back when he brought it to the film, or animation to live action. And this is again just another way he just kind of his love letter to Star Wars. He continues to just weave these characters into his stories, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And it really parallels for me as a fan, like took me right back to Rebels, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was such a great time in Star Wars. Like when that was coming out, that was kind of the when Star Wars kind of converted over to Disney. This was kind of like one of the newest things, and like it just made you feel like, man, we're still hanging on, we're still doing this thing. And I applaud the creators of this show that they do this, and they don't do it to a crazy degree, but I think the fact they're doing this is telling us like, hey, we love these characters as much as you guys do, and we're gonna piece this together, and here you go. And so I'll take this all day long. I love the fact that this was in this setting too, like this, we're getting a lot of this kind of Rebels vibe. We even saw that back in Celebration. That was kind of the vibe, and Ahsoka series is coming up. So we're seeing these threads. So, I mean, what a great way to put them on the big screen or small screen, I guess.
Marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. And yeah, like you said, we know there's another live action series coming up soon called Ahsoka. So we're hoping that's just a preview yet to come. And then seeing him wear like a Rebel pilot suit, but it was blue. I mean, come on. Just
awesome.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I was really hoping Zeb would hang out, but of course he was not there. So Carson has to go looking for help when the interaction with Tim Meadows. And then we see the communications officer that was the least friendliest person ever to Dr. Pershing. And she comes in and basically tries to sabotage Carson looking for help.
Yep.
And there's a bit of a tension there too. Prejudice knows many different forms, and even Carson, it appears to show a bias towards her. He says, she says something about being captured, and she says, captured, I prefer liberated.
Yeah.
But I need liberation from her because she is just causing too many problems. In fact, when she shows up on screen, Mason looked at me and he just rolled his eyes like, oh no, here we go.
Before we started the episode, my daughter commented, she's like, hey, whatever happened to that one girl that was like trying to like do the bad stuff and she was really evil? I was like, I don't know. We'll see what happens, and there she is. And it's like you said, it's almost like, it's like a villain, like, getting their hands ready, like hanging off to the side, like, I've got to, I'm up to no good type of thing. And of course, that's going to be a parallel thread towards, the next episode. Obviously, we've found some things out into this one, but it's cool to see her kind of do, dialogue battle with this, trying to come between what's really happening, try to hide that what's they're going on, and I think that's really interesting too, that she's trying to cut it off at its finest. She knows, to our point, like earlier, like the New Republic's a mess. She wants to keep it a mess, right? And so she's trying to further that in the sense of this conversation, what's going on. What we have from seen in season 2 is those underground cloning facilities or whatever the crap was going on underneath the Navarro itself. So that's still out there too. So I think she's definitely got a hand in that cookie jar.
Yeah, agreed. I like that.
She's so likably unlikable.
Yes,
it's a credit.
That is awesome. That's perfect.
Yes,
right. And it's all Kate.
It's
Katie. It's all a credit to Katie O'Brien because she's killing this role.
Yeah.
She even the way she comes in the rooms, like, oh hey, I was gonna go to the commissary. Can I bring you anything? It's like, that is so lame. That's the most dumb way to come in. We know what you're doing, you evil person. And she's just looking for the gray area in the New Republic that she can exploit, most likely for Gideon's reasons, right? But and the word that I used for her when I was talking about the episode with the convert was, why did it just fly out of my brain? It was supposed to come out of my mouth, but I think it left my ear. She was disarming. That's what it was. She was disarming.
Yes,
and you knew she was going to be a traitor and she was going to mess up Pershing. But her whole thing going through that whole episode to me was just very disarming to me. And you see this in this scene as well. Like, she's just in there sort of chit-chatting, but she's got some nefarious purposes up her sleeve. I can't wait to see what happens, but she's
no bueno, that's for sure.
No way.
All right, so then Carson flies over to what is the name of the planet that the Mandalorians are hanging out at? Why have I missed that? Have they mentioned it?
I don't know that they've said it.
Cave planet with monsters? I don't know.
I don't think they have. I don't think they have. So unless it was in the second episode where he's showing Grogu where Pravala is.
Yeah. What? No.
But that was in the Mandalorian system.
Pravala is the planet where Bo-Katan's castle was.
Right.
Yeah.
That was Mythos.
Yeah, so
or that was the Mines of Mandalore.
Let's just call it the Land of the Lost because there's all these monsters.
That's right.
That's right.
Lost.
Or where they filmed parts of Top Gun Maverick, I think. Yeah. The Mandalorians show up and I think they call him. Do they call him Blue? Little Blue?
They call him the Blue, like kind of the fuzz, or it's like saying like it's definitely like it's the police. They're coming to get us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he shows up to get the Mandalorian involved, and he's just kind of got his delivery is always kind of very similar. So he's very good at sort of hiding his feelings, and I found myself wondering, why is he doing this? Why is he so eager to help? But I think he's just a good guy, and I think he knows that the Mandalorian will help because Grief Karga is his friend, and Mandalorian's like, we're gonna have to relocate now, and then Paz Vizsla says, or we can kill him. I feel like Paz Vizsla sort of means that.
Oh yeah,
I do
and
too.
Don't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so then he says, I just can't let the guy. I can't let the guy die. I've got to help him. So there's this wonderful sequence, a beautiful sequence. Where the Mandalorian makes a sales pitch in the cave in front of this fire, and there's so much symbolism there, and I can certainly talk on and on about it. But before I do, I want to hear what you guys say, and then I'll just steal all your good ideas. Colby, go ahead.
So before we get to the pause part of it, I'm assuming, so we're focusing in on the Mando part or the Din Djarin. Something stuck out to me that he's basically offering land for service, right? This is, I have a swath of land that they've offered to me, and now that we have to relocate, and plus, by the way, we're being attacked by monsters all the time where we are, why don't we go help this cause, do what we need to do on Navarro, help my friend, and we get a nice place to live at the same time. So I don't know what else he could have done, and he's obviously an upstanding member of this covert. People seem to respect him, so who knows what else he needed to have done in front of them. But that's what stuck out to me was his pitch. Like, I'm not going to ask you to do this for nothing. Here, I have a place to put you in a better position if we go and do this. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And I like the fact that, he's standing up for himself in the sense of like, he's bringing this opportunity before them, where before he kind of stood in the background. I feel like he didn't know where his place was necessarily. I feel like he's really become like kind of a natural leader of this group, and I like the fact that he's taken on this role. He's not just some hired gun, what we saw in episode 1 or season 1. And so it just sees his growth as a character too. Like I said, they built that mutual respect. He's gone some missions with them. They've all gained an understanding about one another. And so I think this is a great way for him to like even bring more sense of like his status. And I was expecting, this season to flesh out like kind of that, what we saw from the first episode was kind of like what's going to happen with the Mandalorian culture. And he's providing this new quote way, saying, hey, we don't have to live like this. We can come out of hiding and be part of something, be starting something new. So he's like, he doesn't know what it is necessarily, but he's got the means to do it. I also want to call out the talking stick. Hello.
Yes.
Did you grow up in the 80s and 70s, 80s and had a talking stick as a family and said, you can't talk until you hold the stick? I mean, I love that fact. I thought it was great to symbolize that as like, hey, I'm not doing the talking. Anybody else want to do talking can hold the stick.
I thought it was pretty brilliant. Actually, when I first started teaching, I thought I had this idea. I had this small Superman squishy ball, and I would and like in my classes, if the only way you could talk is if you had the ball, and then kids just started throwing it wild, to each other instead of just tossing. So I got rid of that and got a lot better with classroom management. So now we don't need one. But I love that too, and I'm glad you brought that up, Cory. This is the armorer's forging hammer, as far as I can tell.
Yep.
And I love the symbolism here, right? She in the last episode with Grogu, when we first find out about Kellerman Beck, she talks about the forge and how it's like a metaphor for healing minds and healing hearts and healing the pain of the past. And so when he's using this, he is the leader of the tribe temporarily, and he is forging a path for them with his sales pitch. And I love that. That was just so cool. Smart. And then Pat Vizsla comes over. I mean, he does say something like, we want this tract of land so our people can live in the light again, so children can feel what it's like to play in the sunlight, which was just a gorgeous idea. And I feel like this is something the Mandalorian wants, but I don't think that was initially jumped into his mind. I think he wanted to help his friend, and he saw a way to make everything coalesce together. I think they're both important to him. But I also think I think it's equally important that he helps his friend, because the Mandalorian has figured out that family is more than just if you're wearing a helmet. It's about the people you care about and the people that have your back. And he's got a lot of people like that across the galaxy, all because of Grogu. Do you guys, let's pause for a minute before we talk about Paz Vizsla. What do you think about the Mandalorian as a character in season 3 compared to seasons 1 and 2?
I was thinking as you were talking, I was thinking like, what if they decided not to go with him? Would the Mandalorian Din Djarin be like, okay, fine, I'll go out without you? I think he would, because he's grown that much that he would say, well, you guys can stay here. That's fine. I'm going to go do what I can to help. Because you said he's made friends, he's made acquaintances, he's kind of learned his way around the galaxy, and met up with folks. So I think he would definitely do something like that. He's had significant growth, definitely as a loner to part of this clan to a father figure to Grogu, trying to figure all that out, and it's grown him. He's lost the way and regained the way. He's met with Bo-Katan and seen her path and knows that she doesn't necessarily have it right. But also I think he has this inner turmoil with himself, like, is the way the right way? I've seen some different paths here, different perspectives. I do side with that. That's where I want to be. But maybe we are forging a new way. And I think this is the impetus to that.
Love that. Colby, what about you?
This is much more Din and Friends this season, right? Than Din and Son or Din and Friend singular. And I think that through season 2, we're seeing the payoffs now, because I think in season 2 he started to see the importance of being a part of a community, because he was always on his own. Even before Grogu, he was in and out of the covert, right? He didn't really seem like he had a place in that covert in season 1. He would come in, he would go out. He'd come in and go out. His thing was bounty hunting. He gets Grogu. Then in season 2, we see the importance of other people and relying on other people. He relied on Bo-Katan and her small group. He relied on Ahsoka. He relied on Boba Fett, Fennec Shand. But those are still small type. Now he's a part of a big group. Now he's an integral part of the covert. So it's just interesting for me to watch him becoming more comfortable with being in that group setting. What is that going to turn into? It remains to be seen. Will he stick with it? Also remains to be seen. But I just think that it's interesting. He's taken a back seat. Like, it's definitely not Din the Mandalorian right now. It's definitely a bigger scope than that. But I do enjoy watching him find his place in this group.
I do too. My initial thought is that he's become a part of this family that he's always wanted, but he's always also had it, right? So I think what he really wants is not a family for him, but I think he wants a family for Grogu. I think there might be a part of him that thinks he's not enough, although to be fair, that's more me putting my thoughts in. If I were in that position, perhaps. I don't know that I've seen enough evidence in the series to show that he actually feels that way. True. And that's sort of the trick of analyzing books, literature, stories, whatever, because how much of it is the story and the director and the actor and the words and the language giving you, and how much are you just putting in or guessing about? My challenge with this season with Mando is I don't think he has an arc this season. I don't really see him learning or growing in any way. He's done, the first 2 seasons were basically perfection, narrative perfection with the world of Star Wars and character development, and then was quite complex because he was struggling with, the way, and then becoming this child's father, and then trying to get it to his people, and then realizing I'm really attached to this little guy and I've got to risk everything to save him. And I'm not really interested in being in charge of Mandalore or the Mandalorians. I just want to protect my son. And he does. And then Luke comes along and we know how that goes. And then there are still people that come up to me like, wait, what's going on? Why is Grogu? I'm like, you got to watch the Book of Boba Fett. So that's my other PSA. We got to watch the Book of Boba Fett to fill in those gaps for you. Yeah. So then in this, season 1 is about the Mandalorian finding his way. Season 2 is about the Mandalorian finding Grogu's way. And season 3 is about the Mandalorian hanging out with his people. And it's good. It's entertaining. I wake up super early to watch it, as we all do. But there's still, I don't know. This is my favorite episode of the season. I know we got other stuff to talk about. But I am still struggling. And I'm not someone who just finds something to pick at. I am still struggling with what is his arc if he is the main character of this season. What is it that he's trying to learn?
Well, I think the arc, he really solved it in the first 2 episodes, right? Because that was that was the setup, right? So then, if that is his arc or not, that was his arc. So you bring up a good point. I think what has been sacrificed is that in this expanding of the scope. And I like this conversation that's sort of out there of who really is the Mandalorian? Is the Mandalorian... the title, is it talking about Din Djarin? Is it talking about Grogu? This episode and the last few episodes, to me, almost seems like it's applying to Bo-Katan. Because Bo-Katan is now in a position that I never expected to see her in if we're just judging back her role in the season 2. Her role in season 2 was cool, but now she's becoming a very important Mandalorian. And I think that Din's character has probably had to take that back seat so all these other things can happen.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Dan, you mentioned the title of this episode was The Pirate. Why not The Pirates? Yeah,
Exactly.
why is this a show not called The Mandalorians? Because then, that makes more sense. Okay,
That's cool. Yeah.
So, maybe it's the fact that it's just the Mandalorian singular because we see it through their eyes. Whether you see yourself as the loner, the covert, the apostate, whatever the case is, you're kind of seeing their eye. Who Mandalorian are you? You can kind of see it through their different types of frameworks. So that's a really interesting question. I'm going to think about that as we continue through the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love the Paz Vizsla thing because it's very much set up for you to think, oh, geez, he's going to run the parade again.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I thought, but what about the last episode? And he gives this wonderful speech where he takes it in certain directions. It's the most leader type he's been in as long as we've known Paz Vizsla.
Mm-hmm.
He says, this man, I've had my disagreements with this man, but he risked his life to save my son. And then he says, Bo-Katan did not give up when everyone else did. And he put his head down to indicate himself.
Mm.
And then Bo becomes in charge again. And there's her swagger, by the way, when she leads, is just so awesome. But I really like seeing this little twist with Paz Vizsla. They're giving him more to do. And
he's had more growth.
Layers. Yeah, he has.
And he has such presence too. When he stood up, you felt it. You felt that they felt it in the room. That because he does spend most of his time in the background and only sort of throws in a line here and there, when somebody is like that and they do stand up to take command of a situation, you listen to that type of person. And boy, does he have presence.
Yeah. Yep.
More presence than Santa Claus. Sorry. It's a bit of having a little bit of fun there. All right, so then the rescue mission is on. The pirates have taken over Navarro. They're just being pains. They're shooting at quacking monkey lizards.
Yeah.
They're wrecking things
on blue milk. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought I saw some green milk back there. Must have had the rum in it. But one of my favorite lines is Mando shows up and they always play that that high pitched piping or whatever, and he blasts those pirate ships, and then Grief Karga's like, they've got you outmanned 10-1, and Mando says, I like those odds, which we remember from season 1, and then Grief Karga with all this joy and pride, like a bra papa says, I bet you do. I have goosebumps. That was one of my favorite parts in this whole episode. And, let's talk through the whole action sequence. I really want to talk about the action sequence up to where the Armorer and Bo-Katan have their conversations. We've got a lot of meat on the bone here. Who wants to start?
I'll start. I loved this little raid because, like you said, Bo-Katan is very precision. Hey, we're going to have ground forces. We're going to have air forces. Here's how things will go down. She's in her prime. She's loving this.
Mm-hmm.
She is definitely built for this. She's seen so much action. She's like, this is how it's going to go down. We're going to be militaristic in our ways of getting down there and getting things accomplished. And this was easy peasy for them. I feel like this is what they're built for. But you do see kind of a little bit too that from the last episode, that kind of them training and trying to figure out, their weapons and training younglings and whatnot. And so I feel like there are some newer Mandalorians in the crowd, or their covert is not as big because they've been wiped out. And to the point about what you said about Paz Vizsla, maybe he's the one that's always kind of the old guard, right? Everyone kind of looks up to him, and everyone else kind of more green. So with these other Mandalorians have to kind of take over and figure out what the best way to do this is. But I loved the sequence. I thought this was much better than the final battle from the Book of Boba Fett. This was more tactical. I felt it was right up the alley of the Mandalorians, and this just felt like a lot of fun. They're using all their weapons. They're blasting people, and just methodically going through and taking care of business. And then I also like the pirates too, in the sense of like they're fumbling and things, really very piratey feeling. Like they're on their giant ship and they're trying to roll the cannonballs up the things. And just like they're kind of wacky Disney styled Captain Hook pirates, dressed kind of like that way, and it's fun to see them fumble through their stuff and getting overrun by these protectors. And so it's. I thought it was fantastic. Great sequence. Like you said, this was what I've been waiting for. Like I'm waiting for some meat for the season.
Yeah,
Nick gave it to me right up on a silver platter.
agreed. Even the little pirate that helps Gorshan, it dressed like Mr. Smee from Captain Hook.
Yeah, totally, Mr. Smee.
This is this scene right before the action starts. I thought to myself, now I want a Star Wars Pirates of the Caribbean ride, where we just are riding through these scenes of pirates misbehaving, but they're all Star Wars pirates. Like, come on, Disney, make that happen. I'll write it. And then, like you said, the little guy with Gorian Shan. Another thing I thought was great was there's a part where Din is just flying in and out, bobbing and weaving, taking things out left and right. First of all, before I get to that, the action in The Mandalorian has always been just nothing short of excellent. Just think about over the past of the 3 seasons, the action itself has just been excellent. This is no exception. The dog fights especially, they look so great. But one of the things that made me laugh was when Vane, he's talking to one of his other pirate buddies and he's like, oh, he's above you. No, he's below you. And then ultimately he's just like, I'm out. We're done. I'm gone. And just classic Vane, he's gone. Another thing that made me giggle. Yeah, absolutely. A classic pirate, right?
Yep.
Another thing that made me giggle were the Anzellans. And they say really, really quickly when the bombs are going off and the Mandos are showing up, they show their little door and one of them says, everybody come and look. It was so fast. These little bloodthirsty little Anzellans want to see some carnage. And they're just getting a front row.
But you got to have the captions on. I watched it the second time without the captions on, and you didn't know what they were saying.
Okay.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. I love those little things, and it's for that because they actually put their words up on the screen. I'll do that too. My first viewing, I take the words off. I just want to look at the visuals. Second viewing, I'll usually put them on so I can catch those little things. And the Anzellans never disappoint. It's just a really great cut and dry action scene in the vein of The Mandalorian. Just never disappoints, in my opinion.
I like the guerrilla style tactics too of this. It was pretty awesome, and I felt peril for the Mandalorians. I was worried that because they'd taken a big risk and Paz Vizsla and Mando had to go to bat for this cause, they were going to lose too many of their own, and that was going to cause some infighting. Plus, you just don't want to see anybody who's good perish. And then when that Trandoshan gets up there with that, he's got the high ground, which we know in Star Wars, that's a pretty important thing, starts blasting, you think, oh, geez, this isn't going well. And then you see just from the back, you see the armorer walking out with her tools. And I just think, oh, sweet. Now, the way she took them down wasn't anywhere near as cool as at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
But it was still incredibly awesome. And I never worry about the armorer being hurt. Like if she ever gets in a fight where she has met her match, I'm looking forward to that because that will be absolutely thrilling kung fu like you can't even imagine. But they finally take care of business. There's this wonderful speech from Grief Karga thanking all of them. And, you're going to get from the Western Lava Flats to Bullet Canyon. It's all going to be part of Mandalore. Love that. That was just so cool. And you can't help but feel pride because the Mandalorians have been so ridiculously oppressed throughout the history of the Star Wars galaxy. So you wonder where it's going to go there. But then we get to something that is unbelievably fascinating. Paz Vizsla comes up to Bo-Katan and says, the armorer wishes to speak with you. Cory, Mason asked me this. I'm going to ask you the same thing he asked me. Did you initially think that she was in trouble? What did you think?
Yeah, I didn't know exactly what, I was assuming she was going to say, hey, nice job on, laying out the plan of attack. And, and I kind of had forgot when she was walking down to the sewers. I was like, oh yeah, they kind of had that first coven down there, and that forge was down there. I was kind of getting flashbacks of season 1. I was like, oh yeah, I can remember this now. And cool, this is all set up. They don't have to move all their gear. Kind of set up camp here, or at least move it out to the flats. And Yeah, I didn't think she was in trouble. I think it's a valid question, though. I mean, I feel like she's come into her own. I think she's been taken in by this covert, and they respect her at this point. From the last episode, she said, this is the greatest honor of our covert was saving a youngling. So, she's got the peak. I don't think she did anything wrong, but then we could kind of get that meat of the message, what you're alluding to. Hey, you mentioned to me you saw something, and I guess I have a little beef with this.
Yeah, let's hear it.
She kind of lays it out like, "Hey, you mentioned you saw the mythosaur, and I assume that it's not just a vision. You actually saw it, and there's something else that's happening here. The way is not necessarily still the way." And I thought, man, she's really taking her for her word. And I thought, for somebody so stoic in quote the way and that way of life, that she's really changed gears. And I don't know if that's just because of the ramifications of, the covert themselves, like they need to have a new place in the galaxy, or you're taking her at her word that she did see it. I mean, if she's walked, yeah, I saw him in the store. I'm good now, right? And it's like I feel like the jar had to go get evidence that he was bathed in the waters. Like, bring me evidence. I don't trust you. But right away she trusts Bo-Katan. So I don't know if there is some like history there or something. It just didn't really work for me. I felt like she could have had something like, oh, here's a scale, or here's, I don't know, something like there's something other, like I had a dream too, or I foresaw, someone rising from our coven to take leadership or something. And she does walk in that like beam of light, which I thought was a great metaphor of like,
Yes.
the one has been working there. So yeah, I think that's it was cool to see that kind of shift, but also I think we could have done better story writing somehow. I don't know what you do to get to that point, but they're kind of moving a little fast paced. I know they only have a few episodes left.
Interesting, very interesting. I've got Colby. What do you think?
So I thought the same thing. Like, this is sort of interesting that she believes Bo-Katan. She never questioned it. We haven't seen her question it. The way that I'm wrapping my brain around it is that it's sort of branching off of one of the themes of this show, which is faith. The armorer is putting her faith in Bo-Katan. And you don't always, I mean, it's good to have informed faith. Nobody wants blind faith. But she obviously feels a sense of trust with Bo-Katan to put enough faith in her to believe this. And I think it seems to me that the armorer is at a place where she feels like she's done with all the infighting of the Mandalorians. And she knows that if they're going to survive and thrive, that they need to be united and they need to stop all the civil disobedience with each other, right? And I think she sees Bo-Katan as the possible link to bring them together. So maybe she's reaching out on where in a way that she wouldn't normally, with believing Bo-Katan and the mythosaur. Because I agree, in seasons past, I would have expected her to say like, "Oh, bring me a scale of the mythosaur, prove this," right? But maybe it's just a result of having 8 episodes. Maybe if we had 10, 12, 14, they would have time to write something like that into it. But I choose to feel like it's her expressing her faith in Bo-Katan to really give her this ball and run with it.
I like that.
I like that too. The interesting thing with the armorer is we've seen a lot of people tell a lot of different things. She's never not believed someone. It doesn't seem that people can lie to her. That's not a magical thing. It's just because of her cloud, her presence, her aura, the way she carries herself, and an unbelievable amount of respect that she wields through her presence. She doesn't show a lot of emotion, but she shows a lot of heart. And I feel like that's what Din Djarin is like as well. Although he shows more than the rest of them. So I think the key here to understand this, because at first I took pause and like, wait a minute, you want someone to take off their helmet. You made everybody go through all this crazy stuff and, bathe in the waters and do this and hop on one leg and recite the Star Spangled Banner twice and all this kind of stuff that you got to backwards. Yes. And then she says, take off your bow, remove your helmet.
Yeah.
Before that, though, she stands in front of the forge and it's very smashed. And she says, you should have seen the forge on Mandalore. It sounded like it has like the song of 100 hammers. And it was just like this beautiful metaphor. And the idea of the forge and forging weapons is falls back to a lot of different mythologies. Norse mythology, Greek mythology with Zeus's lightning bolts. All these Hephaestus creating these things, all this great stuff. So then I start thinking about it, and I'm thinking, I think what we're seeing here is that she is realizing maybe the armor is actually growing. Maybe. Look at this smashed forge. We've lost so much. We've lost our planet. How many times has she had to relocate?
Yeah.
How many times has she had to go hidden? And now suddenly she's got a planet with more people than she's had in a long time, and they can be in the sun together, and she's getting new foundlings. And this new person presents herself who wields a massive amount of respect, combat training, and leadership experience. And she has seen the Mythosaur, which for them is like the ultimate thing. I'm not going to compare it to Christianity because I feel like that would be trite, but that's sort of like for them where they're coming from. So then do you respect my station? And Bo-Katan says, yes, unequivocally. She said, and Bo-Katan doesn't mince words. She's not someone who says what she thinks other people want to hear. She speaks her heart aggressively sometimes. She says, well, you've seen the Mythosaur. We must walk the way together, all Mandalorians. So you have walked both worlds. You are the one to unite. So Bo-Katan is like the chosen one for the Mandalorians. Now, I mean, ostensibly, you might say, well, why isn't Din, right? Maybe the point of Din Djarin isn't that he's the chosen one for everybody. Maybe the fact of Din Djarin is he is an inspiration to others, but he's really for his son. I like that a lot. Is it completely clean? No, but we still got a couple episodes left to go. But the fact that Bo-Katan is supposed to bring all tribes together because it is time to retake Mandalore, it's quite moving. It's quite surprising and striking. And I agree with you guys that, at first I wasn't sure. But when I think about that forge metaphor and the fact that even the armor is willing to open her mind to a new possibility, that's something I definitely didn't expect.
Yeah. I found I wanted to happen. I guess it didn't happen. I wanted the armor to take her helmet off.
Same. All of them.
I felt like this is like I'm in solidarity with you. Take off my helmet as well. Like I see you type thing. And I'm not saying that still can't happen, but it's almost like she's giving her kind of like a blessing, saying, "Hey, I get this. You walk both paths, and now I want you to go out and find more Mandalorians. We've got this great opportunity here." Sort of what the speech that Din Djarin gave was like, let's not mess this up. This is our new path to get Mandalore back. Rise from the ashes type thing. So it's definitely a blessing. And she walked back out to the group. She's awkward. Hello, my pants are down. Let's go. Right. Like, it feels so awkward after like having gone through all that, like you said, they're all kind of giving her like the side eye, like, oh, what is going on here? Like, I thought that was super awkward. I thought for a second there she'd be like, oh, she's tricking you. Don't do it. Like, I don't know. I felt super like awkward in that situation.
I was uncomfortable for Bo-Katan from the moment she said take her helmet off. And, tons of credit to Katie Sackhoff because the way she reacted is like, I felt that, right? Like she just made sort of like this noise and then her body language just conveyed discomfort. Like, no, I don't want to do this. And then she was challenged, right? You brought it up, Dan. Don't you respect my station? And then that told her, like, I'm being serious. I'm pulling rank here, and I'm telling you to take off your helmet. So then she still uncomfortably does. And one of the observations I had about the armor also was the definitive statements that she makes. She said, the Mythosaur is a sign that the next age is upon us.
That's right.
right? That shows where her head is at. That shows where her mind is at. She has spent 2.5 seasons counseling others, guiding others, but now she's guiding the Mandalorians, and she's saying, this is a sign that the next age is upon us. And you mentioned it also, where she said, it is time to retake Mandalore. You can't split hairs with that. That is a definitive statement. This is now my primary goal. And I think that is a change in her character.
So you wonder, why did she have to take off the helmet? Well, if she's supposed to unite all of the stray Mandalorians, maybe she's actually saying, you know what, my way may not be the way. This is the way, but maybe it's just the way for me. That almost sounds too open-minded for what we know of the armor, but I don't know. It's some fascinating. The evolution of what it means to be a Mandalorian has been a lot of fun. And they are, well, maybe Din isn't necessarily growing, Mandalorians, and the idea of that is certainly growing. What also is growing is the great suspense. At the very, very end, it's not quite an end credit scene, but there's a brief scene at the end where there's an abandoned Imperial shell. It's very haunting. Lots of dogs barking. And you see, the dogs, who let the dogs out? Right. Colby did. and so then what you see is Carson Teva is taking his X-Wing, and then he says R7 launch probe, and I thought this was awesome. Like the little periscope that R2D2 has, this it comes off of him, and it floats in, and then becomes sort of like Alien, where it's like floating around. It's
like a drone, right?
Yeah, and scanning and looking, and then we realized that Gideon never made it to trial, which is like the worst kept secret because we keep getting hints to this the whole time.
Right.
The fact that they don't double down on security for this guy seems nuts.
Well, hey, let's be for real. They're not good at this, right? So we already realized that from this episode. The handling of a lot of like different things are like, hey, we just kind of like half-hearted here and make sure that, just get them out there. And of course, to the fact from last episode, I forgot the actress's name now. But she knows this is all happening. She's kind of under the. She's spying, obviously, she's a spy. So she knows like where he's going to be, go rescue him type thing. And, we knew we'd see him somehow, some way. So this is no crazy part to me, realizing this. And like the fact that Rob Pilot was just like rolling his eyes so hard, like really, like, oh, seriously, this is happening. Everyone's dead and this is awful. And then I thought it was super like, they do a good job of storytelling, I think, in this show altogether. Like, it's just a fun way to like see things. But then, very bluntly, the person on the other end of the radio was like, "Do you think it was Mandalorians?" When after scanning a ship, I was like, "Really? Like, is that you're just gonna like put it out there like that? Like, after now we just trust them and you're gonna bluntly put this in our lap? Like, okay, on the nose, a little too hard, but I don't know. I didn't like that type of dialogue. I don't get what your guys' thoughts are, but."
I was frustrated, but it's also a fun wrinkle because I think we need to have something happen.
Sure.
And there's only 3 episodes left, so there's got to be some sort of a catalyst. If Moff Gideon's in this thing, this is the time. We're almost at WrestleMania, so you gotta get the big guy ready to come out. Ready to fight. So, oh gosh, I'm not going to speculate. Is it frustrating that they have Beskar there and he wouldn't trust the Beskar thing? I mean, it is conceivable there's some rogue Mandalorians. I mean, there's rogues everything.
Right.
But it was a cool twist, and another reason why I kept saying my word for the episode is yes, because there's some spectacular moments, some fun little twists, and things that make you go,
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is... yes.
So anything y'all want to say, I'm channeling my inner Aaron Harris by saying y'all, anything everyone would like to say before we give our letter grades?
I'll just add on to that little scene there because that one line was a little bit on the nose, but I think that they're trying to make sure that the little ones that watch this are going to get those kinds of things too.
Yeah,
like if they
fair.
just pass over the Beskar, we're going to get that. We're going to understand the implications, but they want to make sure that hey, everybody needs to know this is going to lead to some conflict. I personally am looking forward to that conflict to see what that turns out to be. I also had the same thought where, okay, well, is it some other sect of Mandalorians? Because first of all, the New Republic, thumbs down, they probably didn't even think he was that important. They obviously didn't because they just sent him on some Lambda shuttle. And the Mandalorians, they know that he is way worse than what the New Republic thinks he is. I mean, Paz Vizsla said it, right, when they showed it in the lead up to this episode. I think it was in the episodes of Book of Boba Fett where Paz Vizsla asks him, what did you do with Moff Gideon? And he goes, oh, he's going to stand trial. And he said straight up, he should die for his crimes. That's how the Mandalorians look at him. Clearly the New Republic doesn't. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing why they put that. Was it planted? Was it a legit Mandalorian attack? What is that going to turn into? I'll be interested to see.
Yeah. Cory, anything last minute thoughts?
Yeah, I loved this episode. I thought it was just full of meat. It definitely gives us more wrinkles, like you said. Some great character appearances. It really had everything I want out of Star Wars. It was one of the perfect episode we've seen so far. And it's just a great love letter to what Dave Filoni's built. What Star Wars has got for us as fans. There's a little bit of for everybody, I think. If you're a Rebels fan, you got some of that. You got all kinds of political stuff, cameos from people, just a whole bunch of great stuff in here. And I think I could rewatch this episode over again and even see more things. But I thought it was great. I can't wait for more.
Awesome. Well, why don't you share your letter grade with us?
Oh, it's A+ all the way. That was an easy one. I love when they're easy to grade, and it's harder when those ones are like not so good. They're like hard to grade what I want to do. I don't want to be hard on the grade. I'll give grade of the curve, but this was an easy A+.
Was this your favorite episode of the season
It was.
as well?
Yeah, absolutely the same. Just because it had everything in it. The pirates, the practical effects were fantastic.
Yeah.
Just the scenery and the way it was shot. Got to see the pilot's bar. Just all kinds of. We're all over the place, and it was just so much fun. Every scene was great. Nothing really slowed down. I thought it was a lot of fun. And it's cool to just see everything in this universe just build upon itself.
Excellent. Colby, what about you?
Solid A. And the reason I say A, I mean, there's nothing wrong with an A, right? An A is excellent. Sure. And for all the reasons Cory just gave, really, the action was fantastic, just like normal. There was that twist at the end. We got live action Zeb. I mean, how can you not just love this episode? But I will say this. Having watched it and then watched the conclusion of the Bad Batch, I'm gonna break the rules here, Dan. I'm just gonna tell you the Bad Batch for me was A+. I'm not gonna say anything else. But all day long, all I've been thinking about are those 2 episodes of the Bad Batch, and I enjoyed this episode of The Mandalorian. But I guess in a day where you watch those 3 in the same sitting, wow, that's all I can say. And I don't want to cannibalize The Mandalorian because of the Bad Batch, but I'm just gonna go with an A. This is absolutely fun, and I felt like it moved the plot forward. So yes, give me an A on that one.
Well, I think that's important. I mean, I still wish that these would have come out separately so they could each get their own due in their day in the sunlight. Yep. All 3 of the episodes today were of 2 of the Bad Batch, some of the Man were absolutely outstanding for very different reasons. Narratively and structurally, I mean, this one was the best of season 3, for sure. I'm going to give it an A+ because of that alone. I haven't given too many A+ this season for Mandalorian. I don't know. I mean, if you compare it to other classic Mandalorian episodes, it's probably in the lower half of the top 10. But for all the reasons you both mentioned, some fabulous stuff, some great sequences. The Zeb thing is like one of my favorite things in Star Wars ever. So that was absolutely stoked beyond belief for that. I like the twist. I like the wrinkles. Like we're finally going somewhere, and it's I'm a bit remiss about the fact that we've had to wait so long to get to where I think we're going, but overall, that's okay. I trust in Jon Favreau. I trust in Dave Filoni. And I trust in the two of you and your insights, analysis, and just overall awesomeness. Thank you both so much for being back on the show. Only got a couple episodes left of season 3 of The Mandalorian, but they're going to be a lot of fun. Colby, congratulations again on the Colby Cast. Please tell us what's going on with the Colby Cast and where people can find not only that, but you as well.
Yeah, thanks again. Of course, the Colby Cast is there for your listening pleasure. We talk about all this stuff. Star Wars is mentioned quite a bit. We also talk about Marvel, and we're getting ready to talk about some of these movies that have come out. You know, Creed 3, John Wick 4. We've got other stuff coming up in the summer that's going to be a lot of fun, and we're planning on talking about most, if not all of them, or as much as we can. So my two 20-something sons of mine and myself, we sit down and have fun conversations about these things. So you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Hive, at the Colby Cast, and you can find me personally at CrossCheck3, also on Twitter and Instagram and Hive.
Excellent. And Cory, what is going on in the world of Mr. Clubb? I know you've been busy traveling all over the galaxy yourself. What's going on with you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, just traveling for work and getting some shenanigans there. Definitely had some fun. I will say I caught up with my cousin who got me into Star Wars. We watched last week's episode together, which was a blast, and we had some laughs around just reliving memories and such. So it was a fun time in San Diego. But for me, if you have got thoughts on this episode, would love to hear them. Reach out to me on Twitter at Cory Clubb, or if you have more to say, feel free to email me, CoryC@coffeewithkenobi.com.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.